If it's important to you to help out your kids, grandkids, or just those that are close to you, have you thought about how you want to provide this support and to leave your legacy? Rather than a lump sum inheritance when you pass away, have you thought about doing this throughout your life? And in today's episode, we're going to talk about the shifts that I see in legacy planning, opportunities and ways to financially provide for and support future generations, how to do this in a tax-efficient manner, plus discussions to help avoid basic mistakes.
Welcome to the Your Life, Your Money podcast with Scott Searens, teaching you how to thrive in life, wealth, and retirement.
Well, glad to have you back on Your Life, Your Money, helping you thrive in life, wealth, and retirement alongside Scott Searens over at the Searens Financial Group. I am Ben George, and we're going to talk to you today about legacy planning. Scott, legacy planning, I know when we think financial planning, legacy planning might not be one of the first things you think about, but I'm assuming this is pretty important for a lot of folks.
Actually, you've hit the nail right on the head. It is very important for a lot of folks, but I think at first, right, sometimes people think legacy, so they just think about wills and trust and what they need to do with an estate planning attorney. And then a lot of times when we come in and start, sitting down to plan, some of the thoughts are, okay, I just want to make sure, everything, my money is going to last through retirement. And, I work with a lot of people who have saved a healthy amount. And after we go through the planning process and we see that everything's going to be okay based on some of their goals and how big of a retirement paycheck that they need to cut and their lifestyle needs, there's typically I'll call it a surplus, a potential surplus in the bucket, and it's helping them understand the different things, legacy things that they could do with that surplus. And so it's become a really fun discussion with a lot of clients as I work with a lot of folks that have, family is very important to them, and potentially helping their kids or their grandkids or different charities is, very important to them. And so it becomes a really fun discussion and a unique discussion of, well, do we do that today, or does all of this just take place when we pass away?
Right. And most people, I think, they realize it's best to have an estate planning attorney because they think about the wills and trust. But it's also important for the financial advisor to be a part of that conversation, which is what we want to kind of point you to today. So we're going to explore the role that an advisor plays in the estate and legacy planning process. And we're going to uncover some of the basic mistakes people often make when trying to sort this all out on their own. And, before we get started, I know we're going to hit on a little bit of area of this is tax related, which I want to remind people too. We just created a spot on the website, lifemoneyshow.com/taxes, a great place to get some tax planning tools, right?
Yeah, it's a guide to help people not only understand different tax strategies that they may be able to utilize, but opportunities to also help them reduce their long-term tax burden. My goal is to help people keep more of their hard-earned retirement savings with them and in their pocket versus giving it to the IRS. So go to lifemoneyshow.com, you put in your name and your email address, and then you'll get the guide of tax strategies and tax opportunities.
All right, let me start with an article we came across, which I'm going to throw in our show notes for people to read through. I think it was a really interesting conversation on providing money to your kids, right? Along the line of legacy planning, a lot of people think, okay, I want to pass along my estate to my children. But there's a CEO, and this is an article off CNBC, that the title of it is Why I'm Giving My Kids Money Now and Not in My Will, which is an interesting perspective. He talked about using the money that he plans on leaving his children. And he says, which I think is interesting, Scott, when people ask him, he says he didn't plan to leave. He plans to die with zero, right? And they say, well, what about your kids? You're not going to take care of your kids? But then the whole argument is it's better to take care of them while you're alive. You can enjoy it and you kind of help them continue to grow and do what they want to do instead of having just to hope that they take care of the money you pass them.
It's a very interesting thought process that I'm starting to see the shift towards more and more with clients that I work with. And, I thought this was interesting, right? They said rethinking the inheritance timetable. And they said the typical age when someone receives an inheritance typically peaks around age 60. And if you think about it, most folks at age 60, maybe at that point in time, they've paid off their house as they've been preparing for retirement. Their debts are gone. Their kids are already through college. All of the hard work is behind them. So now they're, and they've probably gotten locked into a lifestyle that they're very used to. And it's a really, interesting way that they look at it here and they think about it is at that point in time, how impactful will this inheritance actually be? Mm-hmm. And, making that shift to if you're helping out your children or your grandchildren, shifting that impactfulness to when they're younger, when they're in their 20s, when they're in their 30s, and their 40s. Ben, I'm not sure about you, but I think, if you were to get a windfall of, money now, or somebody was to give you a windfall of money specific for a use of paying off your mortgage or paying off some debts or investing it, that'd be pretty helpful in life.
Right. I mean, you can get ahead a lot quicker if you were able to pay off some of that debt that a lot of people get stuck with when they're younger and aren't making as much income. Along those lines, it's not even just about, in my mind, just handing the money over to your children as much as helping them and giving them lessons with that money, right? To help them understand what to do with it, how to get the most value out of it, and to help that set them up to be in a better position later in life. Because I know a lot of times in your 20s and even 30s, a lot of that's just trying to claw out and be in a good spot by your 40s even, and to start stacking away. But if you're able to maybe put a little bit more towards that debt and to kind of help you maybe buy a home or an apartment or a car or whatever else, you're not stuck with that could be a huge, huge help.
And I think you mentioned a great thing right there is out of doing this. So if this is something that you want to do for your kids or your grandchildren, is how do you do it, but at the same time not create one of those big mistakes of, just where it becomes wasteful, right? Mm-hmm. How do you use this to also kind of create and teach those financial lessons so that way the person receiving the gift or the inheritance, they're utilizing it to, like you said, get ahead and improve their financial future and, get the compounding in life, because it might not always be compounding investments, but just kind of the financial compounding of life, working in a positive direction for them.
Mm-hmm. And you think about just, who knows? I mean, obviously, whatever you decide to do with your family is going to be best for you, right? But I always think about when reading this is like, how many more doors does that open for someone in their life if they're not stuck worrying about bills or certain payments, right? Do they maybe take another chance at a different job or to start a business or something else that would never have been available to them had they not had that help? So I think it's an interesting conversation. It's not going to be for everyone, but I do think it is a great approach. And it's one my parents have even taken on, Scott, a little bit, is they kind of said, hey, we don't want to leave you a bunch of money. We'd rather start giving you some and helping you out when you need it here during your life, and so we can enjoy it too. So I know that I've appreciated the help they've provided at times, and I'd like to do the same eventually as well with my children. So it's
and look right there, like, look exactly what you said is that now you want to pass on that same type of care for your children, and I find this all the time, and same, I've in life, my parents have done different things that have, guided me in that right direction. And then I say, oh gosh, when I do have children someday, I hope to have children someday, that I want to make sure that I continue to guide them in the right direction as well, because that was really helpful for me. Another part that I thought was really cool in the article was that, the biggest gift that we can give to each other too, or that it said in the article, is time. And so if, getting a little help from your parents, made it so that you didn't have to work a weekend, or you didn't have to, a person didn't have to pick up a second job, or they didn't have to try to, get a little bit of extra income or stress about, the job that they have, and maybe get a job that gives them a better, lifestyle and gives them some of that time to go and do things with the people that are closest to them. I think that's one thing that we really underestimate is time flies fast. And if we can, take advantage of as most of it as we can. And if that's through a little bit of, financial gifting and helping each other out, I think that's one thing that we'll look back and go, gosh, I'm glad that we were able to do that together. And I'm kind of saying that about my parents, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Well, an interesting article, and we'll put it in the show notes so you can reference that if you'd like and to read it for yourself and see what you think about that perspective. But let's shift into our discussion on legacy planning and get into some of the things we want to talk about today. As an advisor, again, we're talking about why the advisor is important to be a part of this legacy planning discussion, not just your estate planning attorney. But as the advisor, Scott, how would you describe your role that you typically play in this process?
And I would say there's probably two parts to this. One, the nuts and bolts part, as they set up their plan, their wills, trusts with their estate planning attorney, we're always making sure that, if something were to happen to them, that their funds are transferring in the way that they want them to go to different beneficiaries. But the other part is, as I was mentioning earlier, is as we set up a client's retirement plan, we're first off making sure that they've got enough to live and maintain their lifestyle. You can almost look at it like, taking a driving trip. You hop in your car, and let's just say you're making a short drive to visit your friends. On that drive, right? Okay, it's going to take a quarter of a tank of gas. And you jump in your car, you look, you got 3/4 of a tank. And I find that happen. And so you've got a surplus. You've got extra. You can make multiple trips if you needed to. And I find that happens in a lot of folks' plans, that they already have enough fuel to get them where they need to go, but they actually have more than just what they need. And it's helping explain that to them to then help them determine, well, does that mean that they want to do extra things in their life now? Does that mean more, trips, vacations, hobbies, activities? Or if that's already kind of set, if this is just going to go to their children and grandchildren or their beneficiaries anyways, is there a different way they want to start looking at that? Is it just important that, hey, it goes to those, beneficiaries when they are to pass away? Or, like we were talking earlier, and as the article was relating to, is there something that they want to start doing now to enjoy those funds and have those memories, while they're still alive and while they're able to do it with their children?
Okay. Everybody's kind of got a different view on their legacy and what they want to leave, how they want to help, who they want to help. How do most of your clients view their legacy? Are most people trying to leave a lot of money to their kids and grandkids, or are they more focused on their own retirement lifestyle?
Boy, I would say this is a split. Some feel that, they've done the help, and meaning tried to, put their kids in a good direction, push them to, go to college and get a good job, and gave them good, habits and values to live based off of. And so some of them say, hey, you know what? My kids are doing just fine. They're well off because we got them on the right track. We don't feel like they've got any debt. And so now, those parents, those clients moving into retirement, they really just want to focus on themselves. And then they say, I think my kids are going to be fine. And, anything that's left will go to them at that point in time. But I'm also seeing a large number of clients where they are very family oriented. They're not only focused just on one generation, they're focused on multiple generations. And like the article was stating, they are looking for ways to set up not only their kids, but their kids' future, but their grandkids' future. And they're looking for ways to do that not only when they pass away, but hey, how can we take the time to enjoy this now, enjoy this today? I'll just give one short example, and then we can dive into other opportunities. But, I've got a client where they want to, take part of their retirement savings, and each and every year they're taking their full family, kids, grandkids, on a family vacation. And they rent out a spot for a week. They go out, they enjoy the time, they pay for all the flights, all the meals, everything's covered. So that way their kids and grandkids can just come down and enjoy. and that's their way of giving back now. That's one way of doing it, and there's other opportunities as well.
Yeah, let's talk about some of those opportunities. People that maybe know they want to give some money, they want to help, they want to leave a legacy. They don't know exactly the best way to do that. Let's start with one. I know that a lot of grandparents want to help their grandchildren with college education because that's such a large expense for so many people, and it can be such a help. So what are some opportunities there?
This is a great opportunity for grandparents to help grandkids by contributing to a 529 plan. And one way that I like for people to rethink this is that, let's just say your grandchild's really young. A lot of times when we think about saving for items like this, it's kind of like saving for our retirement. We'd make certain amounts of contributions each and every month over, so many years. But if you've got a healthy amount saved up, you might want to rethink how you're contributing to the 529 plan. And if you've got the ability to do so, maybe put that lump sum contribution in up front and get the power of compounding working for you. So this was something that we did with one of our clients. They really wanted to make sure that, again, put their grandson in the best possible position. Once he graduated from college, they didn't want him looking at a bunch of debt. And we talked through it, and they've got the financial means to do so. And their initial thought was, well, let's just make monthly contributions over the next 14 years of his life. I said, well, that's great, and you'll get benefits from doing that. But just as you're in a great position because you put your money to work in investments and you had the power of compounding working for you, what if we did the same for your grandson? And so we rethought the idea. We took a lump sum and put multiple years up front of what they could contribute. And again, talk to your tax consultant in regards to this. But we put a lump sum up front. Now that lump sum is going to compound with growth over those next 14 years versus just doing monthly contributions. So I think it was a great way to put, that they not only were putting their grandson in the best position possible, but also putting their money in the best position possible to potentially help their grandson. So helping with college, I think, is a great way, again, financially responsible way of helping to put kids and grandkids in a good position.
All right. Kind of tied into that article we referenced earlier, gifting is another opportunity here. So what do you have to keep in mind when you're thinking about gifting money to either friends, family, maybe even charities or whoever you care about?
Yeah, so keeping in mind when gifting, a person can gift up to $15,000 per person each year. And I always get, that jumbled up when explaining it. So I'm just going to use an example here, Ben. Let's just say your parents, your mother and father, wanted to help you and your wife and it's a daughter, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And your daughter out. So there's three of you.
Okay.
So your mom could give you $15,000. Your dad could give you $15,000. They could also give each give $15,000 to your wife, and they could each give $15,000 to your daughter. So that's
okay.
$30,000, $60,000, $90,000 that they could gift out to, I'll call it, to your family.
Mm-hmm.
So gifting is a great way to, basically transfer money without having to worry about taxes, assuming you're not pulling it from your retirement accounts, right? So transfer, I'm just going to call it like non-retirement type money from, one generation to the next without having to worry about taxes. But I would say is maybe think about tying some financial lessons around it or putting it to support things that would help your children, stay out of debt, or help them understand how to, continue to put themselves in the right, position. So think about whether it's down payments for a house or helping them pay off their house sooner. If they do have debts, helping them get rid of loans or debts. And then, I have one client where part of their gifting process to their children is they want to help their children understand the importance of saving for retirement. And so what they're doing each and every year is they're maxing out their children's IRAs or Roth IRAs. Again, visit with the tax consultant, make sure based on children's income, it's all possible, but they're contributing to, their children's retirement accounts. I have, one friend where I know that they're, putting into their sons, they're just starting an investment account. They're helping their, kids learn about investing. Hey, what's, a business that you really like today that you think is a cool business, or, a business that means something to them? Then they'll go out and they'll buy stock in that company, so that way their children can start to learn and understand, as that stock value goes up and down, what does that mean? And, why did they buy it? And try to relate it all to, their kids and their kids' future. And I think that's really cool, because I believe, Ben, and maybe you've heard this, but there's some statistics out there, it's like every second or third generation, if there was a sum of money in a family, it's like every, I think maybe second or third generation that ends up kind of blowing or losing it all.
Yeah.
So I think taking these opportunities to teach and help your kids and grandkids learn is really important part of it.
Yeah, that's great. And those are all kind of some opportunities that are out there for you to be thinking about. But I wanted to kind of finish out this conversation with just kind of one more area to be thinking about as well, and it's taxes and the estate tax. So kind of quickly break this part down for us, Scott, because with everything, taxes are going to impact you.
Great point. And we always want to make sure we're trying to help put everyone in the best tax position possible. So there are what's called state estate tax. Some states have it, some states don't. I live in Illinois. Like in Illinois, there is a state estate tax, meaning if you're to pass away and your overall estate was a certain value and it was above the estate tax value, well, then your children or whomever your beneficiaries are, they're going to pay a tax on their inheritance. And so it's really important to pay attention to that. There's also a federal level. Now, the federal level is around, I believe, $11 million per person, but that is something that, depending on who's in Congress, and, there's some potential laws right now that they're looking at in Congress, and this is one thing that was, on the table, that they're looking to potentially reduce that. And so that's where advanced planning comes into place. Some of that gifting that we talked about earlier, if you stay within the gifting limits, you're able to start transferring money between generations without having to worry about that state or federal estate tax as you make that transfer. Now, if what's left when you pass away is above those levels, then you may have to worry about those taxes. This is where potentially life insurance comes into play. If you don't want your children or grandchildren to have to worry about the taxes on the estate because you fall above those levels, you may wish to, consider looking at life insurance. That way there's a death benefit, a tax-free death benefit that will help to pay those taxes so that they can keep the estates. People that own a lot of property, this is something that they might want to consider because, I see this all the time. A person passes away, they're trying to transfer on the property. The children and grandchildren can't afford the taxes, the inheritance taxes on the property, and then they're forced to sell the real estate, something that, has probably been in the family for a long time, just because they didn't do the advanced planning to make sure that those inheritance taxes would, be able to be paid. And so overall, I would say sit down with a financial professional because there's a lot of advanced planning that takes place to not only put yourself in the best, help put yourself in the best tax position possible, but also just to make sure that, your legacy is carried on as you were hoping that it would be, and to maximize, your legacy for generations to come.
Great stuff, as always. And again, if you want to learn more about tax planning, not specifically estate taxes necessarily, but just tax planning in general from your financial planning standpoint, make sure you visit lifemoneyshow.com. That is the website for this show, /taxes. And there you'll find a tax guide that'll help you think through some different areas of tax planning, that some strategies that you can maybe take a part of and improve your situation long term, which is always the goal for this show. And Scott also wanted to point out too, while people are on the website, there's an easy way to meet with you. I know people are either listening to this to learn or to maybe find a new advisor. But if you have any questions or want to consider working with the Searens Financial Group, right there on the front of the website is a Work With Me button. Click on that. It's very simple. It'll bring you to another page where you can actually just click a start here and go through the process of actually setting up that time to call. But when somebody does that and begins that process, what can they expect?
That's a great question, Ben. Whether somebody is wondering about their legacy and if they, have saved up enough surplus to pass a legacy on, whether they're wondering when they can retire or how big of retirement paychecks they can cut. We've talked about taxes a lot. If they're wondering about, how they can reduce their tax picture, help reduce their tax picture, help keep more of their hard-earned retirement savings in their pocket versus giving it to the IRS. We've got a structured 4-step process to help answer all of those questions. But it all just starts with a really simple 15-minute phone call. And in that phone call, I'm just going to ask, how can I help? And if I feel that we can bring value and benefit to your overall picture, we can help put you in a better position than where you're at today. We can help you reduce your long-term tax picture and maximize your retirement paychecks. Then we'll talk about taking the next steps in that very structured process. Or with a lot of times too, maybe it's not the right fit. Maybe you need other support. Maybe the questions that you have are in a different direction, and that's okay. Again, don't hesitate. Set up the 15-minute phone call. I'm going to ask how you can help. We'll go through the conversation, and if I need to too, I'm just going to point you in the right direction. So if we can help, we're going to talk about the next steps in the process, or we're also going to make sure that we lead you in the right direction. So we always want to be respectful of your time. Just 15 minutes to understand what's on your mind, what questions that you have, and how we can help you. And either way, we'll lead you in the right direction.
All right, very good. Thanks for that. Again, you can log on lifemoneyshow.com. The Work With Me button's at the top of the page. Add on that /taxes to get that tax planning guide. Always helpful. And you've been helpful again as well, Scott. I know legacy planning is so important for so many people, and it's something to be thinking about. There's a lot of opportunities out there with this, depending on what your goals are for your legacy. So hopefully we gave you some things to think about today on Your Life, Your Money. But Scott, enjoyed it as always, and we'll talk soon.
Great conversation. Looking forward to it.
Searens Financial Group is an independent financial services firm that utilizes a variety of investment and insurance products. Investment advisory services offered only by duly registered individuals through AE Wealth Management, LLC. AE Wealth Management and Searens Financial Group, Inc. are not affiliated companies. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This podcast is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Searens Financial Group, Inc. is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein, provided by third parties, have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Searens Financial Group, Inc.